Welcome to Tea with Tanya. I'm your host, Tanya Ambrose, an average millennial navigating life as a maternal health professional, nonprofit founder, and grad student. Join me in the tea tasting room where we spill the tea on finding balance and promoting positive living while doing it all. Hey friend, welcome back to another episode of Tea with Tanya, your go-to space for real, honest, and transformative conversations about health, wellness, and promoting positive living. My friend, I hope you have done something for yourself in the last week since we met. You know, we're all about self-care and just putting ourselves first here in the tea tasting room. So I hope you've done something for yourself. If not, there's still time for you to do so. Put yourself first. Okay, so this week's episode is special to me because I am talking about a topic that I've been practicing over the last several years, but I didn't necessarily realize I was until recently again. So a couple of years ago, which is so crazy for me to even say, so about maybe 3 years ago, I had the opportunity to be featured in The Every Girl. Yes, The Every Girl, that's an online platform. If you're not familiar with them, I will recommend you checking them out. But I have admired them for years, and you know what made it more meaningful during that time? That opportunity came through Girl by Elevated Wellness, formerly known as Rhythm. They're a company and a platform I've had the joy of connecting with when it comes to wellness and women's health, because they've been amplifying voices like mine and so many others doing purpose-driven work in the wellness space. So I'm grateful they saw something in my story worth sharing. Okay? So here's a little backstory about how that article even came about. As many of you know, as you know, my friend, my work through my nonprofit Squab Life Cares, it centers around menstrual equity, reproductive justice, and just making sure our communities have the tools they need to care for themselves in their full capacity. So this episode, it was inspired by the feature that I was a part of from The Every Girl. And I'll post a link to that particular episode. That was almost 3 years ago. But it still gives me chill when I say it out loud, because I often tend to forget about the things that I have accomplished or the life that I'm living and the things where I'm at now, how things are so full circle as well. Because, you know, sometimes we tend to not, we're so focused on being on the go all the time. We forget to even think about the things we've accomplished. But I'm recording this episode because I've been having some conversations with different people, and it, you know, when it comes surrounding mindfulness and, you know, menstruation, and the last episode that we had, last week's episode, is doing really well. People love that conversation that we had with Dr. Natasha Ramsey. So of course, it's only right that I keep the conversation going in that way. So definitely, you know, shout out to the Girl by Elevated Wellness team, formerly known as Rhythm, who believed in my voice and the work that I've been doing around menstrual health and mindfulness and just wellness overall. So a huge thank you for them, for the connection, of course, and the love. It's a pleasure to keep on working with them as well. Now, let's be real. Most of us were taught to deal with just our periods. You know, we were taught to pop a pill or keep pushing or don't talk about it. Don't let it get in the way of work or school. You know, stuff like that. Does that even sound familiar? And when I think about this, it's not only just because of your period as it relates to maybe your pain, but then, of course, I go back to people not even being able to afford menstrual products, or people not even being able to even be afforded the luxury of taking a day off from work or school again because of their period. But here's the thing, my friend. Our menstrual cycle isn't just a physical experience. It's emotional, hormonal, and, you know, it can even be spiritual, to be honest. And when we ignore that, we disconnect from our bodies, and that's where mindfulness comes in. And, you know, there's been a theme on this podcast throughout the years about mindfulness and wellness. And I'll be honest, you know, sometimes I don't necessarily often practice it or even get the time to, because again, I'm always on the go. So that's why I'm talking to you about this, because I'm living through it as well. Because mindfulness during your period is about being present with your body and what your body is trying to tell you, whether that's needing rest, craving warmth, or just feeling a little bit more tender. It's about tuning in and not tuning out. So let me start this by saying, you know, mindfulness and your period, they absolutely go together, and go together real bad, okay? Because listen, my friend, our hormones are not static. They are shifting, they're evolving, they're whispering to us every single day of your cycle. And when we're not aware of that, when we're out of sync with our bodies, we start to experience physical and emotional chaos. You know the drill: insomnia, irritability, exhaustion, you know, and that feeling of just being completely disconnected from yourself. And mindfulness is a way to come back home to your body. It's about listening, adjusting, honoring what you need in the moment instead of pushing through like everything is fine when it's really not. And I'll say this from speaking for myself. I've always been the push through queen. We're going to push through. We're going to do X, Y, Z. I am no longer subscribing to that life where I'm pushing through. If I can't manage something, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do what I got to do. Okay? Because mindfulness is a way to honor your body's needs during the different phases of your menstrual cycle. Meditation, breathing, and just slowing down helps to restore that balance. And that helps not just with the pain, but with your mental attitude as well. All right, my friend. So let's break mindfulness down phase by phase. And I want you to think about what I'm saying and just imagine each phase of your menstrual cycle like it's a season. And each one invites you into a different kind of energy, a different kind of mindfulness. So we're going to start with the menstrual phase. I think this is the phase that many of us dislike. So the menstrual phase, we're going to call that your winter season. So this is the phase most of us associate with our period when our hormone levels are at their lowest. So in translation, you're not lazy, my friend. If you feel like doing absolutely nothing right now, you're syncing with your body's natural rhythm. And mindfulness here looks like letting yourself take a nap without guilt. I am not a napper because I attribute it to me being nosy or I'm always on the grind, so I don't voluntarily take a nap. But during the menstrual phase, I'm going to take a nap without feeling guilty or without feeling the pressure of, why you take a nap, you're not a napper. No. So mindfulness here in this phase is letting yourself nap without guilt, journaling about how you're feeling emotionally, not just physically. Reflecting on your own life, your career, relationships, mental health. Because let me tell you, during this phase, one thing Tanya's going to do, she's going to reflect. She's going to have a whole, I'm not going to even go down that road, but definitely, reflected on your life. And then just practice deep breathing or meditation, even for 5 minutes. My friend, even if you can only do a minute or two, do that. You'll be surprised, of how much calm, how much to center you're able to be as well. Because this is really a beautiful time to tune inward and practice gratitude. For me, I like to write down at least 3 things that I'm grateful for, even if I'm either curled up with a heating pad and my cup of tea, or I'm just laying in bed or on the couch, watching TV, or just being quiet and just calm, just being still and know what's happening around me. Because again, your period isn't a punishment, it's a pause. It's an invitation to rest and reflect. The next phase is the follicular phase. So we're going to call that the spring season. Right now, where I'm at right now, between spring and winter, they're having a little bit of a war here. But the follicular phase is your spring. And this is when your energy starts to come back. You're feeling much clearer, lighter, maybe even a little adventurous. Your creativity is going to start flowing and your body's like, well, hey, let's move again. Let's get the ball rolling. Let's get it together. Let's go outside because we outside. That's when your body's going to start, telling you this. And mindfulness in this phase is about openness. So ask yourself, my friend, what do I want to create this month? What feels exciting right now? How can I infuse more joy and curiosity into my days? Maybe try a new class. If you have the privilege to try a new class or go to that new, I hate that I'm saying coffee shop, but go to that new coffee or tea or cafe shop, a cafe. Let yourself just be inspired again, because this is a beautiful time to set intentions and get reacquainted with desire. And this is one of my favorite phases on the menstrual cycle because my creativity, it goes crazy. It makes me feel back to my old self. So I get a lot done during this time as well. Because you're not just bleeding and recovering, you are rebirthing. The next one now is the ovulation phase. So we're going to call your ovulation phase your summer. Hello, confidence, okay? This is when you're most confident. Ovulation is when our verbal and our social centers are firing. You might feel extra chatty, me, flirty, extroverted. This is your time to just connect, my friend. We're going to connect, network, we're going to do it all. Because mindfulness here looks like being very intentional with your energy. Who do I want to be around right now? That's very important. Which relationships light me up? How can I be more present with the people I love? So yes, go out. Say yes to that dinner invite, that brunch, lunch, whatever it is. Schedule, in my case, that podcast interview. But also be mindful not to overcommit just because you can. And I'm going to say this again. Be mindful, my friend, during your ovulation phase, your summer phase. Be mindful not to overcommit just because you can. Okay? This is the time to just shine, but definitely stay aligned. So we're going to be friendly. We're going to do it all, but we're not going to do anything that we necessarily cannot live up to or continue after that phase. This is the time to shine, but to stay aligned. And then we have your luteal phase. That's your autumn/fall. This is one of the most misunderstood phase because it's the week or so before your period when your energy start dipping again and then your emotions start bubbling up. So, we talk about, PMS and these different things. The emotions start to get different and it's bubbling and then the energy level is starting to dwindle. But mindfulness here means just being unapologetically in tune with yourself. During this phase, you're going to protect your peace. Protect that peace, my friend. Okay? Nobody is going to penetrate that orbit, especially during this time. Say no without a long explanation. And that was me recently. I'm like, why am I explaining myself to somebody? Not necessarily because they weren't going to understand me, but no, that's it. No, full stop. No period. I don't have to be doing that. So you definitely, say no without a long explanation. Binge your favorite show. Right now, I'm watching Adolescence on Netflix. I'm not going to say it's a favorite show, but it's a limited series that I'm enjoying thus far as I prepare for that part of my menstrual phase. But, binge your show, run that bath, write out your feelings. And then you also want to just finish lingering tasks, but give yourself that space as well. So this is a powerful time to reflect and release what habits, relationships, or beliefs are no longer serving you. Let them go, my friend. Your body's about to let go of what it no longer needs. Okay, so just let it go. Your body is preparing to shed. So can you. Your body get ready for just make people go. So just be, you can do it as well. So while your body's preparing to shed, you can also do the same thing when it comes to, habits or relationships or beliefs that you no longer serving you. And then the next thing I want to talk about is this what period peace looks like? So often we fight against our bodies so many times, my friend. We see our period as a nuisance. We view rest as weakness. But what if we reframed all of it? So what if every part of your cycle had wisdom? What if honoring our body was the beginning of real healing? Not just physical, but emotional and spiritual too. And that's the essence of mindfulness menstruation. And no, my friend, you don't have to be perfect with it. We're not necessarily striving for perfection here. Some cycles will feel heavier, some will be smooth, but the key here is awareness. It's awareness. So when you know what your body is going through, you give yourself permission to move through it with compassion. When you know what your body is going through, you give yourself permission to move through it with compassion. Because that's really and truly going to be key in this world as a woman existing and the different cycles that we experience as well. Because sometimes we weren't necessarily taught this in primary school, elementary school, or high school. We weren't necessarily, these things were not taught to us. We were just out here, you're seeing your period, or here's a pad, or don't get pregnant. Some of these things, which is like, no. And then there've been people who often talk about, that girl, she's on her period, that's why she's moody. And there were times when we'll feel offended as menstruators, but it's like, no, yes, I am on my period, or I'm my menstrual cycle. I'm at this phase of my menstrual cycle. My energy is going to be one way. How I'm feeling is going to be another. So you definitely just want to ensure that you are focusing on you. Because when we talk about body literacy, that's a goal of mine, for us to be body literate when it comes to our body, so we can be in tune with our bodies. For me, and I'll share some before I go. I'll share some of my period rituals. Of course, it's going to be tea. Tea every day, day in, day out. I grew up in Antigua. You had a cut on your finger, you're drinking tea. You had a little stuff. So tea is just a part of my life. So, I'm just going to be drinking my tea, especially during that, throughout that menstrual phase, the different phases of the menstrual cycle. It's not just about hydration for me. It's just a moment usually to pause. Like having a cup of tea is sacred to me, honestly, because it's a moment for me to pause, especially, when I'm drinking that fever grass or the peppermint or whatever the case may be, if you're someone who essentially may have severe cramps, so just have cramping during your period, I would recommend you really and truly trying that raspberry leaf tea, because that helps with cramps. It soothes the mind, and it gives, it's just going to give us a reason to just be still. Like sometimes no phone, no distraction, just me my cup of tea, or in your case, could be a cup of coffee, whatever the case can be. But I'm going to be watching for my tea. Okay. Me, when I started working out at the gym consistently, I would go to the gym and I would be doing every sort of hard workout. And it doesn't matter if I was bloated, cramping, or even exhausted. But now, let me tell you, my friend, I am listening to my body. If my body says rest, that trainer is not going to see me. If I need to move, I'll stretch or I'll do some sort of yoga or just take a walk, even that, because we underestimate the importance of taking a walk, and not just during our menstrual phases. The phase of the menstrual cycle, but more so just from an overall health and wellness. Walking really is key. So mindful movement is about honoring your body, not punishing it. And then lastly, tapping into body literacy, affirming yourself. I trust my body. I honor my cycle. I give myself permission to rest. So when it comes to body literacy, this is very big for me, because learning to understand my cycle, how your cycle is when you ovulate, how I feel before my period, how my energy shift has been a game changer. And it will be a game changer for you as well, because I do track it all, not obsessively, but intentionally. So I do encourage you to track yourself throughout the different phases of your menstrual cycle. What are your energy shifting? How does that look? Because that awareness, it helps me to plan, prepare, and most of all, just be compassionate with myself. And I'm encouraging that to you as well, my friend. It definitely is important for us to focus on who we are, where we are, being in tune with our bodies, so that no one can necessarily tell us or dictate how we're feeling. There's an explanation as to why you're feeling the way you're feeling, because your period can be a time of renewal, of letting go, like I would have mentioned. So whether you're working full-time like myself, you're caregiving, you're studying, running a business, or all of the above, you deserve rest, you deserve care, you deserve rituals that remind you that you matter, my friend, okay? You matter, and I hope you can remember that. So I want to challenge you to create your own mindful period rituals. What helps you feel grounded? What brings you comfort? Whether that's sipping tea, lying down with a heating pad, writing in your journal, listening to an audiobook, or reading a book, or just saying no to something that doesn't serve you, lean into that, my friend. And if you haven't read the article yet, I will. That was from like 3 years ago, but I'll put the link in the show notes as well for that article that inspired this episode. So your assignment for this week, yes, we have an assignment, is to pick one phase of your cycle to be more mindful in. I'm not telling you to go and be mindful throughout the 4 phases. Just pick one of let's pick one of the phases of your cycle to be more mindful and see where does that lead you. Whether it's journaling through your period, or setting a goal during ovulation, or saying no during your luteal phase. Just choose one thing, my friend, and let that be your ritual as well. Let's keep the conversation going. Let me know what you think. I would expect for us to have our homework here in the tea tasting room next week. Until next time, stay whole, stay grounded, and sip slow, my friend. I look forward to seeing you back in the tea tasting room next week. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Tea with Tanya. If you like this episode, be sure to share it with a friend. Don't forget to follow on Instagram at Tea with Tanya Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the weekly Tea Talk newsletter. And of course, rate on Apple or Spotify and subscribe wherever you listen. See you next time. I love you for listening.